Welcome to Creating Disney Magic with Lee Cockerell. Lessons in leadership, management, and customer service. You can create magic too. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and of course, I'm with Lee Cockerell. And in a rare move, I do not know if we've ever done this before. We have two guests on the show at the same time. So I know we mentioned before we had a Donald Miller on a couple episodes ago how we never have guests, and then not only are we having a guest again, it's two guests. We have Bob Burg and Jeff West. Oh, guys, it's so good to have you with us.
Yeah,
Oh, so great to see you both. Thank you. It's been a long time since we've spoken.
it
It
It's an
is.
has
honor to be
been.
here.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
All still here.
that's the important part. We're all still here.
Absolutely. That is
Well, Bob is a longtime friend of myself and Lee and the show, but Jeff is a new friend. And I like new friends sometimes as much as I like old friends. So it's great to meet you, Jeff.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be joining you guys today.
Yeah.
Well, the reason we have invited Bob and Jeff together is they teamed up for a new book, which I think is fantastic. Streetwise to Saleswise, become objection proof and beat the sales blues. Now, you probably know Bob Burg from The Go Giver, which is a fabulous book, a book I recommend. I read it once a year, and I was so excited to see a new book come out. And before we get into the book, Lee actually has a really good story about a lunch meeting today or a coffee meeting. I'm sure it was at Coffee for the Soul. And what book did they bring up during your talk, Lee?
Go giver. I
wow.
mean, and this guy he didn't know we had a call today with Bob at 3, and he just brought it up. And I said, "You won't believe this." And he's a huge fan of yours, and well, I'll get you in touch with him. He's a
Well,
super
that's you, Lee, always creating magic.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, always creating magic. Okay, so this in what if you read the Go Giver, you're used to this format that Bob did another parable. So if you want to hear about why parables, I believe Bob talked about that, but oh my goodness, it's been years. So I don't even know if we should reference that. It's been so many years since Bob was on the show. And this book again is a parable, takes place in New Orleans, and it's just a great story about sales and how to overcome rejection and how to deal with it. So let's get to two questions. You can answer them in whatever order, however you want. But how did you two, Bob and Jeff, team up for this book? And then the principles in here, I think, are wonderful because whether you think you're in sales or not, you're in sales, and you will learn from this book on how to deal with rejection and how to overcome some of it and what to do next. Lee and I are selling every day in some manner, so I found it very helpful. So, how did you two team up, and then how did you put the principles and the story together for this book?
Yeah, well, Jeff and I have been friends now for, I guess, 20 years. He was at one time a client. He was a huge leader with a major insurance company, and he was also a great referral source in helping me get in with the rest of the company. So, but he was a fantastic leader. But after he retired from sales, he just sort of shifted and went into writing, and he wrote a wonderful parable called The Unexpected Tour Guide, which was a wonderful book on sales. And then he teamed up with another person, Lisa Wilbur, to write a book called Said the Lady with the Blue Hair. And he has studied and learned his craft, become a great writer. And so, and years ago, I had put together, and you know me, I'm not a storyteller. The Go Giver was John David Mann was the lead writer for that. I'm a how-to guy. I'm step one, step two, step three. I'm a boring guy. These guys can tell stories, and so I had written a how-to book, not a book, just a sort of an ebook draft on how to become what we call objection proof. But nothing ever really happened with it. But Jeff and I have remained friends. He's also part of our Go Giver Success Alliance mentorship online mentorship community. And I just one day, Jeff and I can talk sales for hours. And we were going back and forth on something that I saw that I thought was really good. And I said, And I said something like, "Hey, keep this because it might come in handy when we finally write our parable or something on objections." And it was kind of half joking, but kind of half not. And Jeff wrote back just saying, "Hey, if you're serious, I'm in." And so we did it. But Jeff was the lead writer for this. He has a background as a musician, and he loves New Orleans. And so the story takes place in New Orleans, and it's just a fun story. And he just did a phenomenal job.
It's
Oh,
been so great to do this collaboration too. Bob is an amazing friend, an amazing mentor to me, and it's just been a joy to make it all happen.
And by the way, I don't even want to take credit for all the how-to part. A lot of this is also Jeff's teaching too. And he developed something called fusion points, which he also taught to his sales team, which also is a big part of the book as well. So it's not as though, I was the how-to, Jeff's the story. It was a combination of Jeff's wisdom as well, but he was the storyteller. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Lee, you have an interesting turn in your career. Happened many years ago when you went from operations to doing what you do now, which involves a lot of selling. So I think this book is right up in line when your couple episodes ago we talked about becoming a coach. You go from executive to coach, and now all of a sudden you have to sell a lot. And this book is right up in that lane. What have you found, Lee, are the toughest parts of selling yourself?
well, for me, I don't have trouble selling myself. I have trouble asking for the money. And I just feel like and I've gotten better at that because I get good feedback that it's people appreciate it and it's helped them, and that has kind of stimulated my like, okay, I take the time to do this, and so it's okay to be rewarded for it, and it's okay
yeah,
to be
of course it
for it.
is.
And but and we see being the reach we have now, we're reaching all over the world, of course, with the internet and all these things we do online. And it's just amazing how many people, they appreciate me more than I thought they did. It's what people don't know that is interesting, that when they actually learn something new, they get excited and they go, "Whoa, why didn't I?" One guy wrote me this morning and said, "Why didn't I have a boss like you when I was earlier on in my career?" I said, "I don't know, but it's never too late to get started. And now you know how to be better, so go be better." And that turns my that's the fuel for me, as people appreciating it.
Before we went on air, that I still tell a Lee Cockerell story at my seminars where we talk about sending personalized thank you notes to everyone, including people on our team. And I talked about how you would often, when you were you caught someone doing something good, and you sent them a note. And one time that you had to, and you talk about this in one of your, I've read all your books, I don't remember which one exactly it's in, but that you talked about going to you had to go to one of their homes to do something, and I don't remember what it was. It was either drop off something or pick up something, but you Lee Cockerell, went to one of their homes, and you came in, and what did you notice on their living room wall? A framed copy of your personalized handwritten note. What a difference
And
you
that was
made.
40 years ago, and I still know the guy.
Yeah,
He was great. He did such a great job, and I really did appreciate him. I just sent
of
him a note
course.
and said, "Oh, man, you're the reason I don't get fired." And there it was, framed right in the foyer of the house. And that was a big lesson to me. Don't underestimate how much influence you have and how you can make a difference to somebody by just saying thank you.
Yep.
You're great. I mean, he
People,
was.
Yeah.
people love to make that connection, and they love to be appreciated. And what you did there will last their whole life. It's excellent.
It was good that his wife now knew he was really good.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why, and in doing that is something Jeff would actually call, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be a fusion point. That was that connection with a person on an emotional level while also being on a logical level.
Right.
Yeah.
Fusion points, something I branded years ago when I first left the insurance industry. because I was so confused. How could you take one salesperson and another salesperson that on paper look like they should both be very successful and put them out in the field? One would choose to persist and one would choose to quit. And so as I started to research how that decision got made, it went into the neurology of the brain and everything. But what happens in every decision we make is the logical portion of our brain connects with the emotional portion of our brain. And the emotional portion immediately sends a signal into our chest and our stomach, a somatic marker, and it's either going to make us feel great or make us feel terrible, depending on if it's a negative or positive emotion. And a fusion point are those times where we can intentionally make a positive emotional response happen and connect it with the logic of what's going on. And it makes people loyal and persistent and happy, and they want to take that next step. And that's exactly what you just showed a great example of, Lee, in that story.
Yeah, that was a good lesson for me too. No.
I still remember, I've got handwritten notes from Bob and Lee, and I remember the first note Bob ever sent me said, "You demand." And I thought that's pretty cool to get a note from Bob Burg saying I'm the man. And the first handwritten note Lee ever gave me, it said, "You made me famous." So in both cases, probably not true, but I really appreciated both of those handwritten notes. You just remember things like that.
I don't know if you made Lee famous, but you definitely are the man.
Well,
Definitely.
I'll take what I can get. All right, Jeff, I have a question for you because I suspect you are the one behind this. I loved it in the book how the main character was not a salesperson, and the whole story is him going from not being a salesperson to being a star salesperson, because I assume that just shows that if you apply what's in this book, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your background, you can be a star salesperson.
You're absolutely correct. Such a great comment. When anyone who goes into sales, the first time they accept a job, they're going from not being in sales to having to learn the craft. And so Bob and I intentionally created a storyline where we took a young man from, quite frankly, being a little bit of a smart aleck is the best way I can say it. I don't know how we need to keep the show there, but he gets himself into a bind in the very opening pages, and then he has to have a different job, and he goes into sales. And I wanted to take someone, and Bob and I together wanted to take someone from knowing nothing all the way through becoming quite successful, and do it in such a way that the story itself kept the reader's hearts involved and the teaching was strong. And Bob's teaching on objection proof is something that I personally used for so long. And we've got my teaching on things in there. We've got Bob's teaching. It's a really unique collaboration for a parable, because a lot of the times in a parable, you've got one person who will be the lead writer that's the fiction teller. On my email signature, it says President and Chief Spinner of Tales for West Marketing Group. And so I love that part. But in my case, number one, I learned so many of my own success things from Bob. And if we have time in your story, I'll tell you how he and I actually met, because it's hilarious about that issue. But when you weave all that together and bring it into a story format, you can take someone and teach them things in such a way that they're going to retain it. And it teaches leadership lessons, recruiting lessons for those who have to build a sales team. I mean, it's got so many great things in there. Plus, anybody can grab this book, and if they'll apply it, they should do pretty well.
Bingo.
Yeah, and that takes us, because Jeff mentioned it, the idea of objection proof. One of the things I really liked about the objection proof idea is to almost make getting no's a game, and to know once you get if you just go for no's, you will eventually get a yes. It's impossible not to. Tell us a little more about objection proof, Bob.
Well, there's actually a book out there. When you said go for no, there's a book out there called Go for No.
Oh, I have
And
not read that.
they actually the authors live near Orlando. It's our friends Andrea Waltz and Richard Fenton. And the book is called Go for No. And then the subtitle is Yes is the destination, no is how you get there. And they totally, absolutely reframed the word no into something that you can embrace. Now, that doesn't mean it's fun. It doesn't mean it's fun to get a no. You just are able to deal with it a lot more effectively. And that's one of the lessons Jeff shares. And that was actually from something he did when he was in sales. And he put a dollar value to every no that he would get, knowing how many no's it took to get, to yes. But objection proof itself, the concept, it's both a philosophy and a methodology that allows the sales professional to work effectively within the objections aspect of the sales process. What happens is, for many in basic sales 101, sales company sales training, or in a book, and I'm not, by the way, disrespecting any sales trainings, books, or anything there. I've learned a lot from tons of them, but there's always been that part about objections where you're taught how to overcome objections. First of all, you cannot overcome an objection. Think about the word overcome. Okay. First, it shares a Latin root with the word convincere, which means to conquer. Now, I don't know about you, but I have never met a prospect who wants to be conquered by their salesperson. Okay. And so to do that, you're starting off with an antagonistic type of frame. Okay. It's push and push, and no one's going to win when that happens. So what Jeff and I like to say is, instead of trying to overcome the objection, instead, let's work effectively within the objection. In other words, first, let's not assume that what they tell you is the objection is the actual objection. I'm not saying they're lying. If they're lying, that's a whole different issue. That's a trust issue, and you got to go back and hopefully reestablish that. No, what I'm saying is, many people will give an objection without really knowing what they're objecting to, and here's why. As the salesperson, you deal in your product or service every single day, many times a day. For this person, though, depending upon what you sell, it may be their one or second time ever or fifth time ever dealing with something. They don't know the process. So what happens is, you're providing information, you're asking the great questions, but there's something that they're not quite feeling comfortable with. They don't know exactly what it is, but maybe they don't know what they don't know. They don't want to appear ignorant by asking the wrong question, or for whatever reason, again, we can't read another person's mind. They don't know. They just have a sense there's something not quite right. So what do? Since they don't really know, they just kind of spew out, the price is too high. I've got to talk to my whatever. I need to think it over, or whatever. So in the old school, if they say this, you say that. So if they say the price is too high, or I have to do it, you say, well, that makes a lot of sense. Blah, 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 blah. But now you go into countering this, right? And overcoming the objection. But you could give, in this case, you could be giving the perfect answer to the wrong objection, because that's not really what they're objecting to, right? So instead of doing this, let's instead of reacting to this objection defensively, let's respond to it. Let's empathetically share with them that we want to actually, really understand the concern. It's a very legitimate concern. And now we're going to work with them together to get to the actual root of the objection. Now, once we know that, okay, now we're able to partner with them in order to advance the sale. That's really, in a nutshell, what objection proof is.
What a great summary, which you can find out more in the book. We'll talk about the book again in a moment, but I think one objection you won't get is if you want to take your family on vacation. And if you're going to do that, call our friends at Magical Vacation Planner. You can reach them at 407-442-2694, and you can plan any vacation you want. They can help you out. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but you'll have a great time. I've used them a lot myself. So the book again is Streetwise to Saleswise: Becoming Objection Proof and Beat the Sales Blues. I enjoyed it. It's a good read, and I also like the audio version because I like to do both, because you listen to a book and then you can study the words more when you have the physical version or the Kindle version. What's great about the audio version on this one is Jeff and Bob narrate together. So they go back and forth, which I thought was kind of a unique way to do that. That was a great idea.
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't give this away, so this is just between us. but Jeff does a great imitation of Mr. Satchmo himself, Louis Armstrong, a New Orleans icon, and he does that during the audio. He actually does a great imitation of
Yeah,
Mr.
that's great. I
Thank
have a
you.
question about this. How long should I give Jody to improve our sales after he reads this? You
Raise
think
his quota tomorrow.
Yeah, I would have him
immediately
on a
or
hurry,
30
right?
days? Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Nah,
It probably
I'm
took
real.
Bob and I 20 years over the years to learn it, but you can learn it faster because we had to learn it slower. So
I don't have 20 years, but close.
I'm
Yeah,
starting to
that's
realize
great.
what I've got myself into
Very
here.
interesting. I want to make sure I read it because selling is not easy if you don't know, I think, the emotional part, and you don't
Right.
know the obviously the real objection. That's a great point, that we often assume we know what the real problem is when we don't. We don't like to dig much deeper.
Isn't that the truth, Lee?
Yeah.
And you know, we all come at the world from our own set of beliefs,
Yeah.
right? And those are, you know, our beliefs are very subjective truths, right? They're the truth as we understand the truth to be, not necessarily as the truth is. And I call it our unconscious operating system. And this is a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television, you know, everything we get, right? And we tend as human beings to believe that everyone else has the same basic belief system as we do, that everybody sees the world basically the same we do. How could it be any different, right? It's all we know. So we assume they do as well. And yet it's absolutely not true. We see the world from our own set of beliefs and thoughts and feelings, and we hold certain things to be of value that others absolutely don't. And it's only when we
All been
understand
brainwashed by different people.
exactly.
That's great. Sounds like a great book. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
I
Well,
look forward to hearing what you think.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. We may have to have another talk again, just to go deeper. That's the only downside to having Bob and Jeff as our guests, is we just don't have the time it really deserves to go in deeper into the book and objection proof and all that, because it is fantastic, and it is a wonderful little parable that it's not that big of a book. You'll go through it, and then it's short enough you'll want to read it again and study it. I think the first time you'll learn from it, but the story kind of captures you. Then you go through it the second time and start taking notes.
Yeah, great.
Yes. So you can find the book anywhere you like to buy books. If you want to hear that great Satchmo impersonation, well, then you've got to get the audio book. And where can we find out what's going on with you two individually, what you're up to, and how do we keep up with you?
The easiest part of that, if they'll go to streetwise to saleswise.com, it will give them all the retail links for the book, and that's the easiest way to get everything. Plus, if it's a new Audible membership, I believe they can actually get the book for free when they start a new Audible membership. But my websites are jeffcwest.com. And then if someone wants to have me come in and work with their leadership team, have me work with their sales team, fusionpoints.com is the easiest way to get to me.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Bob, where can we find you?
I'm plain old Burg, BURG.com. And when people are there, they can subscribe to my daily impact email that I publish Monday through Friday morning.
All right, which I highly recommend. And that shows how long Bob has been around, that he can have a website that's just berg.com.
That's a sign of age, my friend.
Yeah.
Yes,
He's the man. That's it.
the man. That is true. That is true. All right. Thank you so much, Bob and Jeff, for being here. It's wonderful book. Great to talk to you. And until next week, go out and create magic for others.